Commander Elena Vasquez was standing on the observation deck of the space station Prometheus when everything changed. She was looking at the beautiful blue planet below her, thinking about her family in Argentina. When the sky suddenly broke open like shattered glass, 700 alien warships appeared from nowhere. They were massive, each one the size of a small city, and they moved toward Earth with terrible purpose. Elena grabbed the communication panel and screamed for answers, but no one had any. The aliens had not sent any message. They had not asked for surrender. They simply came to destroy. The Galactic Council had made its decision long ago. Humanity was too dangerous, too aggressive, and too unpredictable to be allowed into the cosmic community. They had watched humans for centuries, studying their wars, their cruelty, and their strange ability to survive anything. The Council feared what humanity might become if they reached the stars. So they sent the Zorvathi, their most brutal enforcers. To end the problem before it could begin, Elena watched helplessly as plasma fire rained down on her homeworld. Great cities that had stood for thousands of years turned to glass in seconds. New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai, all of them burned. The oceans boiled where the alien weapons struck. Mountains crumbled. Rivers turned to steam. And the screaming, even from space, Lena could imagine the screaming. In 72 hours, humanity lost over 4 billion people. 4 billion mothers, fathers, children, and friends. 4 billion dreams ended in fire and ash. The survivors crawled into holes in the ground like wounded animals, waiting for death to find them. The Zorvathi Supreme Commander was named Voreth Keln. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. He had conquered 37 worlds for the Council, and he saw Earth as just another simple mission. When his boots touched the scorched ground of what used to be Paris, he broadcast a message to all surviving humans. This world now belongs to the Galactic Council. His cold voice echoed through every remaining radio and television. Resistance is extinction. Accept your fate. Voreth believed the fight was over. He thought the primitive humans would understand that they were beaten. He expected them to come crawling out of their hiding places, begging for mercy. This was what every other species had done when faced with Zorvathi power. But Voreth did not understand humans. He did not understand that humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in bunkers that had been built during Earth's own wars, survivors gathered in the darkness. They came from every country that still had living people. Soldiers, scientists, doctors, and farmers sat together in the cold underground rooms. Their faces lit by emergency lights, General Marcus Chen stood at the front of the largest bunker. Half of his face was covered in burn scars from the initial attack. He had lost his wife and both children in the first hour of the invasion. His eyes, once warm and kind, now held nothing but cold determination. He looked at the broken people before him. Many of them were crying. Many of them wanted to give up. They had seen their world die. What hope could possibly remain? "I know what you are thinking," General Chen said, his voice quiet but strong. "You think it is over? You think we have lost? You think there is no point in fighting?" He paused and let his words hang in the air. "You are wrong." The woman near the back laughed bitterly. "Wrong? Look at what they did to us. Look at what we lost. They have weapons we cannot even understand. How can we possibly fight them?" General Chen nodded slowly. "You are right that they are stronger. You are right that they have better technology. You are right that they have already won this battle." He stepped forward, and his scarred face caught the light. "But they made a mistake. A terrible mistake that will cost them everything." The room fell silent. "They came here to exterminate us," Chen continued. "They did not come to fight a war. They came for a quick execution. They expected us to die icily, the way a farmer kills chickens." He slammed his fist on the table. "They do not know what humans do when we are cornered. They do not know what we become when everything is taken from us." Lena Vasquez arrived at the bunker 3 weeks later, after traveling across half a destroyed continent. She had escaped the space station before the aliens captured it, riding an emergency pod down to Earth through fire and chaos. She found the resistance through whispered rumors and secret signals. When she walked into General Chen's command room, she carried a bag full of stolen alien technology. She had taken it from a crashed Zorvathi scout ship, killing 2 alien soldiers with nothing but a metal pipe in desperate rage. "I want to fight," she said simply. Chen studied her face. He saw the same cold fire in her eyes that burned in his own. "Good," he replied. "We have work to do. Across the ruined planet, in caves and tunnels and collapsed buildings, other survivors began to organize. They shared what little food they had. They tended to the wounded. They buried the dead when they could find them. And slowly, carefully, they began to plan. The word spread from hiding place to hiding place. Carried by brave messengers who risked their lives to connect the scattered groups of survivors, it was a single word, spoken in whispers, written on walls. Passed between strangers who had become brothers and sisters in suffering. Revenge. Vorath Keln sat in his command ship above the burning planet, reading reports from his soldiers. They told him about small groups of humans still hiding, still refusing to surrender. He laughed at these reports. What could these primitive creatures possibly do against the might of the Zorvathi Empire? He ordered his soldiers to hunt them down slowly. There was no rush. The humans were already dead. They just did not know it yet, but Vorath did not see what was happening in the darkness below. He did not see the anger growing in human hearts. He did not see the plans being drawn on dirt floors. He did not see the stolen alien weapons being taken apart and studied by human scientists who had lost everything except their brilliant minds. The Galactic Council had sent the Ozorvathi to end humanity. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. They had united a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself. They had given humanity a common enemy. They had awakened something ancient and terrible in the human soul. The war for survival had begun, and humanity would not go quietly into the night. 3 years passed under the alien occupation, and Vorath Keln grew comfortable in his victory every week. His officers brought him reports of small problems. A patrol had been ambushed in the ruins of Berlin. A supply depot had exploded in what used to be China. Communication towers kept mysteriously failing in South America. But Vorath was not worried. These were just the dying struggles of a beaten species. The humans were starving in their holes, slowly fading away like animals in winter. He could not have been more wrong. Alina Vasquez had spent those 3 years doing something the Zorvathi never expected. She was learning. Every piece of alien technology that the Resistance captured was brought to her team of scientists. Every dead Zorvathi soldier was carefully studied. Every intercepted message was decoded and analyzed. The humans were not just surviving. They were adapting. Alina now led the largest resistance cell on Earth, operating from a network of tunnels beneath the ruins of Buenos Aires. Over 2,000 fighters answered to her, along with hundreds of engineers, doctors, and scientists. They had created an entire underground city, hidden from alien sensors by layers of rock and stolen cloaking technology. One night, Alina sat with Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, a physicist who had survived the attack on Lagos. He was old, his hair completely white, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He had been studying Zorvathi technology for 3 years, and he had finally discovered something important. Their entire civilization runs on these, Samuel said, holding up a small crystal that glowed with blue light. Power cores. Everything they have, their ships, their weapons, their shields, all of it connects to these crystals. Lena leaned forward. And Samuel smiled, showing the gap where his front teeth used to be. These crystals are sensitive to specific electromagnetic frequencies. If we can generate the right signal, we can shut them down. All of them at once. Alina felt her heart beat faster. You can build something like that? I already have. Samuel led her to a hidden workshop where a strange device sat on a metal table. It looked like a mix of human and alien technology, covered in wires and glowing crystals. I call it a Reaper. When activated, it will disable every piece of Zorvathi technology within 5 kilometers. Alina stared at the device. For 3 years, she had watched her people struggle and die. She had seen the aliens hunt humans like animals. She had buried friends, lovers, and comrades. And now, finally, she held hope in her hands. "How many can you build?" she asked. "With enough materials?" "Hundreds." The resistance went to work. Hidden factories were built in irradiated wastelands where the Zorvathi never patrolled. Captured power cores were harvested from destroyed alien vehicles. Slowly, carefully, the humans built their arsenal of Reapers. General Chen coordinated everything from his bunker in Switzerland. Messages traveled through underground networks, carried by brave runners who memorized codes and destroyed evidence. For first time since the invasion, resistance cells across 6 continents began working together as one unified force. They called it Operation Silent Thunder. Vorathkel noticed nothing unusual. His reports showed the same minor problems, the same small attacks. He spent his days planning his return to the Council, thinking about the rewards he would receive for successfully cleansing this primitive world. He never suspected that beneath his feet an army was preparing to strike. The night of the attack was cold and clear. Stars shone over the ruined earth like diamonds on black cloth. Resistance bases around the world, fighters gathered their weapons and said quiet prayers. Many of them knew they would not survive. They did not care. They'd already lost everything. Alina stood before her soldiers in the Buenos Aires tunnels. Their faces were hard and determined, lit by flickering torches. "For 3 years they have hunted us," she said. "For 3 years they have called us animals. Tonight we show them what animals can do when they are pushed too far. Tonight we remind them why they should fear the dark." At exactly midnight, every major Zorvathi installation on Earth went dark. The Reapers activated in perfect synchronization. Alien bases lost power. Ships fell from the sky. Weapons stopped working. Shields failed. For the first time in 3 years, the Zorvathi were vulnerable, and the humans came out of the darkness like ghosts. In Berlin, resistance fighters stormed a military base using nothing but knives and captured guns. In Tokyo, tunnels opened beneath an alien command center, and soldiers poured out like ants. In Cairo, Sydney, Moscow, and Mexico City, the same story repeated itself. Thousands of humans attacked with fury that the Zorvathi had never seen. Vorathkel was in his command ship when the lights went out. Emergency power flickered on, but half his systems were dead. He stumbled to a window and looked down at Earth. Fires were burning everywhere, but not the fires of alien weapons. These were the fires of human victory. "Impossible," he whispered, his communication officer. A young Zorvathi named Sela managed to restore partial contact with ground forces. The reports that came back were terrifying. Base after base had fallen. Thousands of Zorvathi soldiers were dead. The humans were not just attacking, they were overwhelming everything in their path. "How?" Vorath demanded. "They are primitives. They have no technology. They have no weapons." Sela's voice trembled. "They have our technology now, Commander. They took it. They learned it. They used it against us." Vorath stared at the burning planet below. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something his species had almost forgotten. Fear. Real deep fear. He grabbed the communication panel and sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. His hands were shaking as he spoke. "Request immediate reinforcements. The humans are not broken. They are not dying. They are hunting us. Repeat, the humans are hunting us. We are losing this war." The message traveled across the stars to Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council. When it arrived, the council members read it with confusion. How could the mighty Zorvathi be? Losing to a species that had not even achieved interstellar travel? They decided to send reinforcements, but there was no urgency. The standard response time was 18 galactic months. Surely the Zorvathi could handle a few desperate primitives until then. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. It would learn soon enough. Back on Earth, Alina Vasquez walked through a captured Zorvathi base, stepping over alien bodies. Her soldiers cheered around her, celebrating their first real victory since the invasion. But Alina was not smiling. She was looking at the alien ships parked in the base. Ships that were now dark and silent but could be repaired. She had a new plan forming in her mind. A plan that would take the war beyond Earth. A plan that would make the Galactic Council regret ever hearing the name humanity. The Ghost War had begun, and the ghosts were hungry for revenge. The Galactic Council did not understand what was happening on Earth. They received reports from Vorth Keln, but they did not believe them. Humans defeating the Zorvathi? Impossible. The Council had watched humanity for centuries. They knew humans were clever, yes, and dangerous in their own primitive way. But they were still just animals compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. The Council decided to wait. Reinforcements would arrive eventually. The Zorvathi would crush the rebellion. Everything would return to normal. They had no idea that Alina Vasquez was building something that would shake the foundations of their empire. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains in South America, there was a cavern so large that it could hold an entire city. Before the invasion, it had been a secret military research facility. Now, it was humanity's greatest hope. Alina stood at the entrance of the cavern and looked at what her people had created. 12 Zorvathi warships sat in neat rows, their hulls repaired and their systems upgraded with human technology.
Ow.
They'd been captured during Operation Silent Thunder, taken from bases and crashed sites across the world. Engineers had worked day and night for months to make them fly again. But the ships were not the most important discovery. Dr. Yuki Tanaka walked slowly toward Alina, clutching a tablet computer in her hands. Yuki had been a language professor at Tokyo University before the invasion. She had watched her husband and daughter die in the first attack. She had not smiled since that day. But she had worked harder than anyone else in the resistance, spending years decrypting Zorvathi computer systems and communication codes. Now she had found something that changed everything. "I broke through their navigation database," Yuki said quietly. Her voice was flat and empty, like someone who had cried all their tears long ago. "I know where the Galactic Council is located. I know the hyperspace routes that connect their empire. I know everything." Lena took the tablet and looked at the data. Star maps filled the screen, showing thousands of worlds connected by lines of faster-than-light travel. And there, at the center of everything, was Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council. "They never encrypted their coordinates," Yuki continued. "They never imagined anyone would steal their ships. They had been rulers of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They believed themselves invincible." Lena felt something stir in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. Real hope. For the first time since the invasion. She called General Chen and showed him the data. The old soldier studied the star maps for a long time, his scarred face showing no emotion. When he finally spoke, his words were careful and measured. "If we do this, there's no going back. We will not just be fighting for Earth anymore. We will be declaring war on the entire galaxy." Alina nodded. "They declared war on us first. They killed 4 billion of our people. Called it a cleansing, like we were insects to be exterminated." Her hands tightened into fists. "I say we show them what happens when insects fight back." General Chen looked at the ships in the cavern, thought about his dead wife, his dead children, the billions of humans who had been murdered simply for existing. He thought about Vorth Keln and the Galactic Council, sitting comfortable in their palaces while humanity suffered. "Do it," he said. "Take the war to them." Alina selected her best pilots and soldiers for the mission. 300 humans would crew the 12 ships. It was a tiny force compared to the fleets of the Council, but Alina knew that size was not everything. What mattered was surprise, speed, and the burning determination of people who had nothing left to lose. On the night before departure, Alina gathered her crew in the main cavern. They stood before the ships, their faces lit by the blue glow of alien engines. Many of them were young, barely adults, born into a world of hiding and fighting. They had never known peace. All they knew was the struggle to survive. "Some of you will not come back from this mission," Alina told them honestly. "I will not lie to you or make false promises. What we are about to do is the most dangerous thing any human has ever attempted. We are going to fly stolen ships into the heart of enemy territory and attack the capital of an empire that spans thousands of worlds." She paused and looked at their faces. None of them showed fear. They had already faced the worst thing possible and survived. Nothing could scare them now. But if we succeed, Alina continued, we will change history. We will prove that humanity cannot be destroyed. We will show every species in the galaxy that the Council is not invincible. We will light a fire that can never be put out. A young pilot named James, who had lost both parents in the first attack, stepped forward. We are not doing this for revenge, he said. We are doing this for everyone who died. We are doing this so their deaths mean something. Alina smiled, a rare expression on her hard face. Then let us give them something to remember. The ships launched at midnight, rising from the hidden cavern through tunnels that opened onto a remote mountain peak. They climbed through the atmosphere, past the wreckage of orbital stations and the patrolling Zorvathi vessels. The human pilots flew with skill learned from captured training programs, avoiding detection through routes mapped by resistant scouts. Vorath Keln was still on Earth when the ships disappeared into hyperspace. He did not know they were gone. He was too busy fighting the growing rebellion on the ground, losing more soldiers every day. Watching his control of the planet slip away piece by piece, by the time anyone realized what had happened, the human fleet was already halfway to Nexus Prime. Alina sat in the command chair of the lead ship, watching the strange lights of hyperspace swirl outside the windows. Around her, the human crew worked at alien consoles, speaking in a mix of different Earth languages. They were Japanese, Nigerian, Brazilian, Russian, American, Indian, and more. The last remnants of a destroyed world, united by suffering and hope. UKI sat beside Alina, still working on her computer, still decrypting more data. She had found something else in the Zorvathi systems, something that made her empty eyes light up with interest. The Council has grown weak, Yuki said. They have not faced a real challenge in thousands of years. Their military is strong, but their economy depends entirely on a few key resources. She pointed at her screen. Antimatter refineries. They fuel everything the Council does, and they are all located near Nexus Prime, barely defended. Alina understood immediately. We do not need to defeat their fleet. We just need to hurt them where it matters. The plan formed quickly. They would not attack the Council directly. They would strike their economic heart, destroy their refineries, and cripple their ability to wage war. It was a strategy that humans had used throughout their own history. Hit the supply lines. Starve the enemy. The fleet traveled for weeks through hyperspace, following the routes that Yuki had discovered. The human crews learned more about their ships with each passing day, finding new capabilities, solving new problems. By the time they approached Nexus Prime, they were ready. Alina looked at the star maps one last time. The capital of the Galactic Council was just hours away. The empire that had murdered her world was about to learn that humanity was still alive, and humanity was very, very angry. Nexus Prime was the most beautiful world in the known galaxy. Its cities floated in the clouds, connected by bridges of light that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Billions of beings from thousands of species lived there, serving the Galactic Council in endless bureaucracy and luxury. For 12,000 years, it had been the center of cosmic civilization. It's untouched by war, unthreatened by enemies. No one had ever dared to attack it. The very idea was unthinkable. High Arbiter Thiessen of the Velanthi Collective stood at the center of the council chamber, delivering a speech to representatives from across the Empire. Thiessen was ancient, even by galactic standards. His body was thin and fragile, covered in ceremonial robes of gold and silver. His voice, however, was strong and commanding. The situation on Earth is under control, he announced to the assembled delegates. The Zorvathi have reported significant progress in pacifying the remaining human resistance. Soon the cleansing will be complete, and we can forget this unfortunate species ever existed. The delegates murmured in agreement. Earth was such a small, distant problem. They had more important matters to discuss: trade agreements and territorial disputes, and the endless politics of empire. The humans were already forgotten. Then the alarms started, screaming. Every screen in the council chamber flickered and died. Emergency lights activated, casting the room in red shadows. Security officers rushed in, their faces showing confusion and fear. This had never happened before. The council chamber had the best protection in the galaxy. Nothing could breach its systems. What is happening? Thiessen demanded. Before anyone could answer, a voice came through every speaker. Every communication device, every screen in the entire system. It was a human voice. Speaking in the common galactic language with an accent that sounded strange and harsh, "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Earth Resistance Fleet." The council chamber fell completely silent. Representatives from dozens of species stared at each other in disbelief. Earth, the primitive planet they had ordered destroyed. How was this possible? Elena continued speaking, her voice cold and steady. "You authorized the murder of 4 billion of our people. You called us primitive, inconvenient, a problem to be cleansed." She paused, and when she spoke again, her words were ice and fire combined. "We are humanity. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we have traveled across the stars to teach you the cost of underestimating our species." Thiessen grabbed a communication device and shouted orders to the defense fleet. "Find those ships. Destroy them immediately." But the human fleet was already moving. 12 warships burst from hyperspace in the heart of the Nexus Prime system, their engines burning bright. They were not heading toward the planet. They were heading toward the ring of massive structures that orbited a nearby moon. The antimatter refineries that powered the entire empire, the Council's defense fleet scrambled to intercept. But they were slow and confused. They had never faced a real attack. Their formations were messy, their responses delayed. The human pilots flew circles around them, using tactics learned from centuries of Earth warfare. Elena stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the battle unfold. Her crew moved with perfect efficiency, firing weapons, dodging enemy fire, communicating in quick bursts of words. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but numbers did not matter. Speed and precision mattered. Surprise mattered. The first antimatter refinery exploded in a ball of white fire, so bright that it could be seen from the surface of Nexus Prime. The second followed minutes later. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. One by one, the economic heart of the Galactic Council was destroyed. "Impossible," Thiessen whispered, watching the destruction from his chamber window. "How can they do this? They are primitives. They have no technology. They have nothing." A young aide approached him carefully. "Hi, Arbiter. They used our technology. They captured our ships, learned our systems, and turned them against us." Thiessen felt his legs weaken. He had to grab the window frame to keep from falling. In 3 hours, a species that the Council had dismissed as animals had done more damage than any enemy in 12,000 years. Elena's voice came through the speakers again. "We did not come here to conquer you. We came here to send a message. Earth is not yours to destroy. Humanity is not yours to exterminate. And if you ever threaten our home again, we will return. But next time, we will not stop at your refineries." On the bridge of her ship, Elena watched the Council's defense fleet finally organize into a proper attack formation. They were too late to save the refineries, but they could still destroy the human ships. Her sensors showed hundreds of vessels closing in from all directions. Commander James called from his pilot station, "We need to leave. Now." Elena nodded. They had done what they came to do. Staying to fight would be suicide. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Return to Earth by random routes. Do not lead them home." The 12 human ships scattered in different directions, each one jumping to hyperspace moments before the Council fleet could catch them. One by one, they disappeared into the strange lights of faster-than-light travel. Leaving behind chaos and burning wreckage, the Battle of Nexus Prime lasted less than 4 hours. But its effects would last for centuries. On the Council chamber floor, delegates from across the Empire were screaming at each other. Some demanded immediate retaliation against Earth. Others wanted to negotiate. Many were simply terrified, realizing for the first time that their empire was not as invincible as they had believed. Thiessen stood alone by the window, watching the distant fires of destroyed refineries. His hands were shaking. His mind was racing. The humans had not just attacked, They had humiliated the Council in front of the entire galaxy. Within days, the news spread to every corner of known space. The humans of Earth, a species marked for extinction, had struck the heart of the Galactic Council and escaped. The message was clear and simple. Humanity was not dead. Humanity was fighting back, and humanity had just proven that even the mightiest empires could bleed. On a dozen different worlds, oppressed species heard the news and felt something stir in their hearts. If the humans could fight the Council, maybe they could too. Whispers of rebellion began to spread like fire through dry grass. Elena's fleet regrouped in the empty space between stars. Far from any patrol routes, they had lost 2 ships in the battle, 47 brave humans who had given their lives for the mission. Elena recorded their names and promised that they would never be forgotten. Then she set course for Earth. The war was far from over. Voreth Keln still held their planet. The Council still wanted humanity destroyed, but something had changed. The galaxy now knew that Earth was not just a primitive rock to be cleansed. Earth was a fortress defended by the most dangerous species the cosmos had ever seen, and Lena Vasquez was just getting started when her ship emerged from hyperspace above Earth. She saw the blue and green planet that was still her home, despite everything that had happened. Fires still burned on its surface. Alien ships still patrolled its skies. But somewhere down there, billions of survivors were waiting for news. Elena opened a communication channel that she knew the Resistance would receive. "This is Commander Vasquez. Mission successful. The Council bleeds. We Recoming home. Across the planet, in hidden bunkers and underground cities, humans heard her words and cheered. For the first time since the invasion, they felt something other than despair. They felt hope. And hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. 1 year had passed since the attack on Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had changed forever. The news of humanity's strike against the Council spread to every corner of known space. Species that had been oppressed for thousands of years heard the story and felt hope for the first time. On a dozen different worlds, rebellions began. The Council's grip on the galaxy was weakening, and everyone knew who was responsible on Earth. The war against the Zorvathi entered its final stage. Elena Vasquez led the assault on Vorath, Keln's command bunker, personally. She had waited years for this moment, dreaming of it during the darkest nights underground. Now, surrounded by hundreds of Resistance fighters, she stood at the entrance of the alien fortress that had once symbolized humanity's defeat. The battle lasted 6 hours. Zorvathi soldiers fought with desperation, knowing that surrender meant death. But the humans fought with something stronger than desperation. They fought with rage, with grief, and with the memory of 4 billion lost souls. When Elena finally broke through the last door, she found Voreth Keln alone in his command room. The alien who had overseen the destruction of her world was sitting in his chair, staring at a blank screen. His black eyes showed no emotion, but his gray hands were trembling. "You cannot win," Voreth said, his voice weak and tired. "Even if you kill me, the Council will send more fleets. They will destroy you eventually." Lena walked toward him slowly, her weapon raised. "Maybe, maybe not. But I did not come here to discuss politics." Voreth looked at her face, at the scars and the hard lines that years of war had carved into her features. "What do you want?" "I want you to send one final message to the Council," Lena smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "I want you to tell them what happened here. I want you to tell them that the Zorvathi occupation is over. I want you to tell them that humanity is free." Voreth's hands shook as he activated the communication system. His voice cracked as he spoke into the microphone, broadcasting his words across the stars. "This is Supreme Commander Voreth Keln. The occupation of Earth has failed. The human resistance has won. Request immediate." He never finished the sentence. The communication was cut, and the message was sent. Across the galaxy, Council representatives heard the impossible news. The mighty Zorvathi had been defeated by the very species they were sent to exterminate. Elena did not kill Voreth Keln. Instead, she brought him before a tribunal of human survivors, where he faced justice for his crimes. It was important, she believed, that humanity showed the galaxy it was not just a species of warriors. They were a species of laws, of civilization, of principles. Vorith was found guilty of genocide and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a prison built on the ruins of what used to be New York City. He would live surrounded by the evidence of his crimes, watching humanity rebuild what he had destroyed. Earth was finally free. The celebrations lasted for days. People danced in the streets of rebuilt cities, crying tears of joy and relief. Families reunited, lovers embraced, children laughed for the first time in years. The nightmare was over. Humanity had survived the unsurvivable. But Alina knew that freedom was just the beginning. She stood before the rebuilt United Nations, now operating from a fortress in the New Zealand Highlands. Representatives from every surviving nation gathered in the Great Hall, their faces showing a mix of hope and exhaustion. Behind Alina, holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy. The Council was fracturing. Subject species were rising in rebellion everywhere, inspired by humanity's example. Economic systems were collapsing from the destruction of the refineries, and a growing coalition of worlds was requesting formal alliance with Earth. They tried to exterminate us because they feared what we might become. Alina addressed the assembly. They were right to be afraid. We are not the same species we were 5 years ago. We have been forged in fire and blood, and we have emerged stronger than ever. General Chen, his scarred face showing pride for the first time since the invasion, stepped forward to continue the speech. We have received a message from the Galactic Council. They are sending a delegation to Earth, not to threaten us, not to demand our surrender, but to ask for peace. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Peace. From the empire that had murdered billions of their people? I know what many of you are feeling, Chen said. Anger, hatred, the desire for revenge. I feel it too. Every day I think about my wife and children, burned alive in the first attack. His voice hardened. But revenge alone will not secure our future. We must think about what comes next. The council delegation arrived 3 weeks later. Their ship landed at the fortress under heavy guard, surrounded by human soldiers who watched with cold, distrustful eyes. High Arbiter Thiessen emerged slowly, his ancient body bent with age and shame. He had once been the most powerful being in the galaxy. Now he walked like a broken old man. Alina met him at the landing pad. They stared at each other for a long moment, the human commander and the alien leader who had ordered her species destroyed. We request peace, Thiessen said finally. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. The council is prepared to negotiate terms. Alina nodded slowly. I know. The question is, what are you willing to give for that peace? The negotiations lasted for months. Alina, Chen, and a team of human diplomats faced the council representatives across a long table, arguing over every detail. The humans demanded and received everything they asked for. Every world that the council had subjugated would be offered freedom. Every species that the council had oppressed would be given the choice of independence. Trade routes would be opened equally to all. The Zorvathi would be permanently restricted to their home system. And Earth would have a permanent seat on the new council, not as a member, but as its enforcer. Thiessen protested this last demand. You cannot ask us to put our security in the hands of the species we tried to destroy. Alina leaned forward, her eyes hard as stone. You are not in a position to refuse. Your economy is in ruins. Your subject species are rebelling. Your military is spread thin across 1,000 fronts. We are the only thing standing between you and complete collapse. She paused and let her words sink in. Accept our terms, and we will help stabilize your empire. We will protect the innocent, punish the guilty, and ensure that what happened to Earth never happens to any other world. Refuse, and we will watch your civilization burn while we build our own. Thiessen looked at his fellow delegates. They all wore the same expression of defeat. The council had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Now they had no choice but to bow to a species they had considered primitive. Greed. Thiessen whispered. The treaty was signed on the anniversary of the invasion, 5 years to the day since the Zorvathi had first appeared in Earth's sky. Alina stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Prometheus station, watching the council ship depart. Beside her, Dr. Yuki Tanaka held a tablet computer, already planning the next phase of humanity's expansion into the stars. "What happens now?" Yuki asked. It was the first time she had smiled since losing her family, a small, fragile expression that seemed almost painful. Alina looked at the stars. They had once seemed so threatening, hiding enemies who wanted humanity dead. Now they glittered with possibility, with adventure, with the promise of a future that had nearly been stolen. "Now we do what humans have always done," Alina replied. "We explore. We build. We grow. We make friends and enemies. We laugh and cry and love and fight." She turned to face her friend. "We live, Yuki. For the first time in 5 years, we get to actually live." Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Council had surrendered to Earth. Humanity was no longer a hunted species. They were the new guardians of cosmic peace, the enforcers who would protect the innocent from tyrants and oppressors. Some species feared this development. Others celebrated it, but everyone agreed on one thing: the universe would never underestimate humanity again. On Earth, children played in rebuilt parks while their parents told stories of the resistance. In schools, teachers taught the history of the invasion and the war that followed, making sure that future generations would remember. And in quiet moments, survivors visited memorials for the 4 billion who had been lost, promising them that their deaths had not been in vain. Alina Vasquez became the first human admiral of the Terran Coalition fleet. She spent the rest of her life traveling the stars, helping oppressed species find freedom, building alliances with friendly worlds, and making sure that no one ever forgot what humanity had endured and overcome. When asked about her legacy, she always gave the same answer. "They called us primitive. They called us dangerous. They were half right. We are dangerous to anyone who threatens the innocent, but we are not primitive. We are human, and that is the most powerful thing in the galaxy." Stars no longer belonged to empires who ruled through fear and cruelty. Stars belonged to everyone brave enough to reach for them, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way forever.